Welcome to another Growing in Grace podcast. Welcome to another Growing in Grace podcast. We're glad that you joined us today. We have a special guest with us today, and we are so glad when you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And I think you're in for a treat today. We want you to let other people know about these podcasts. And today we have a topic that we've worked with previously, but we're looking to work with it from another perspective. We've done this from a male's perspective, and that is holy dating. And this is holy dating part 2. And so with dating, for some, you might think that's an oxymoron to say holy dating, because dating has so many connotations. Right. And when a lot of people think of dating, they think of the worldly definition of dating. And so we're talking about holy dating, so we're redefining what dating looks like in holiness. And so we're glad to have Andrea Stafford. Andrea Stafford. I almost called you your maiden name. Because I know that name longer than I know the Stafford name for you. Yes, sir. And I've known you since, very early in your life. Yes, sir. And so I knew you as a single person, but there came a day when you met the man that you would marry. But you began to go through a process. And so glad to have you. Thank you. And I think we're going to have a beautiful conversation. Yes, sir. Let's get started. Okay. So is there anything you'd like to tell us about yourself before we get started?
You introduced my name correctly.
Oh, very good.
The married version. I've been married going on 9 years this year. And we dated.
It's been that long.
It's been that long.
Well, time just really
flew by.
Ooh, 9.
Yes,
9.
Oh my
God. You're almost getting to double digits.
I'm so excited. So excited.
When will it be 10 for you?
2026, so next year.
Next year.
So coming up this year will be 9. And the next
so
year
you're
will be
almost
10.
9.
Almost
okay,
9.
well, let's not push it too fast.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying every day. I'm good.
That's good.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good. Okay. So almost 9 years of marriage.
Yes, sir.
And where did you meet?
We met at church.
Oh, that's a good place.
It is a good place. Yeah. Probably one of the best places.
Probably better than the club.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Usually.
Right.
I have an exception to that, but
okay, right.
But usually.
In my case, it was good things to meet in church. So
yeah.
we met in church, and the rest was history. So yes.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Very good. So, what do you know about the world's definition of dating?
The world's definition of dating is drastically different from our view as far as Christian view, holy view of dating. What I've come to learn, and even in today's generation, most of the time the dating is almost about self, pleasing the flesh. What do I want? What do I like? And then, of course, even when it goes into marriage, it's still about me. And they're almost focused more so on a ceremony than they are the actual marriage. So the world's definition is so different. And again, in the sense of it's not focused on God, it's focused on me, it's focused on the person, and sometimes it's focused on the person in an outward way. Whereas, again, in the holy manner, that is a night and day, almost literally night and day contrast of how we view holy dating.
Yeah. So a worldly date could include some of what? What could be included in a worldly date?
A worldly date, you can go overseas, overnight, you name it. And in some cases, almost the dating seems like a marriage than it does dating. So the boyfriend almost holds the same standard as a husband. So the treatment is different. And then, of course, you kind of can do whatever you want to do. Whatever self wants to do and the world standard, you can do that.
Yeah. So the world standard allows for sex before marriage.
Yes.
So that could your night could include
A nightcap. If you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nightcap. What?
Nightcap is when you stay overnight, basically. So sex before marriage again.
Okay.
So,
See, I didn't know that was called nightcap.
yeah.
I thought nightcap had something to do with, I don't know, maybe a hat or maybe a drink that you take on at the end of the night.
You could do that too, but
Oh.
it usually
Okay.
doesn't just end in a drink.
Okay. Okay. So in a worldly date could include alcoholic beverages,
Correct.
Substances, and again, you could sleep over,
Yes.
and now that's just a date, but you alluded to something that is more than that. In dating, so you have this person that actually becomes your person,
Yes.
and in that that person begins to have rights that the person give up
Yes.
without a commitment.
Correct.
And that's where you were talking about where they actually begin to take on that person as like a spouse without being a spouse.
Correct.
And that's where they say like you're cheating, but you really hadn't made a commitment. So you're cheating on me, but you really hadn't made a commitment. Like they'll be dating somebody, and then that person that they're dating, they begin to have another person that they're dating while they're dating this person, and then they'll say, "Well, you're cheating," but really there's no commitment there in the first place.
Yes.
So dating actually now in the world is actually taking the place of marriage commitments, you would say?
Yes, without the actual commitment, without the pastor, without God. Just again, what do we want to do? And then they kind of fulfill that outside of what God has called us, how He called us to date or go into marriage.
Yeah, and so in some of the worldly dating, it leads to actually living together too.
Yes, living together.
So they're dating, but they're living together.
Yes. Apartment, house, cars, you name it.
Yeah. So dating people actually buy properties together.
They do. They buy properties. They'll have a house. They'll have cars. Share accounts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just since you brought that up.
Okay.
And since you brought that up, so they're going and they're dating.
Yes.
But they've began to commingle their accounts and their purchases like mortgages.
Yes.
Well, what happens if they absolve? How does that work?
I don't know that much about that because I just know that it does create an atmosphere of chaos because you have set yourself up with this person without the actual commitment, the proper commitment, the godly commitment, and now you're left with a lot of chaos and what ifs because that person isn't tied to you. You haven't made that agreement that this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. You most of the time you go based off emotion, and that's something that will backfire again when you don't do it under God's design.
Yeah. So that's some of what the world is doing.
Yes.
But now, if you were going to do holy dating, what does that look like? What does that look like?
It's a lot of denying yourself, your flesh, to the degree of there is no sex outside of marriage. So you have to really get to know who this person is. Your intention is God willing marriage, or if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But your intention is marriage. Your intention is to find a lifelong partner, and also look at self. Am I making myself a person that could someone would want to marry? You do a lot of internal self thought processing, a lot of accountability. Who is your accountability? Your village, and the same thing with the other person. You need to find out who holds them accountable. What are their goals, their visions? It's all of that, and then also again, what is God's design for how I should do it? That takes a lot because again, you're denying self. Because once you like someone, you're dating that, for you getting to know them, you like who they are. the flesh has that desire. It wants to get to know that person in a more intimate way.
Yeah.
But you deny self and you get closer. If in my experience, I actually got closer to God because I knew, for me, again, growing up in the church, this is it.
Uh-huh.
This is it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you just hear them preaching and all that stuff like that.
About the divorce and
yes,
remarriage.
Yeah,
and,
so this is it. I can't,
so,
you know, I don't,
yeah.
and I don't want to go through this again. Actually, it's
Yes.
a lot. It can be a lot. And so my intention was, I want to be married. I knew that I wanted to be married, but I also wanted to have a wonderful relationship, a wonderful marriage. And I wanted a God-fearing man.
Yes.
You hear that in society, they love God, but to have a relationship, to know who God is, and to be confident in who God called you to be, yeah.
So, question: how do you, in holy dating, you know, dating being a period of time where you get to know somebody for marriage is what we're talking about.
Yes.
And what some people call dating is, you know, like casual sex.
Correct.
That's what some people call dating. But what we're talking about is actually getting to know somebody for marriage.
Yes.
You know, and if somebody don't want to call that dating, that's that period of time. That's what we are referring to. Is just a period of time where you get to know that person. And actually, we speak of it where we actually do have accountability.
Yes.
Where you don't make provisions for your flesh.
Yes.
Where you actually, or you do acknowledge that the flesh is weak.
Correct.
You make provisions
Yes.
so that you don't let the flesh get carried away.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
So rather than letting the flesh, making provisions for the flesh to have its way, you make provisions for the flesh to be under subjection.
Correct. Yes,
And that's the
that.
accountability that we're talking about.
Yes.
So in a way, you do make provisions because you know the flesh is weak.
Yeah.
You have to fortify. Say, Lord, bless me with some people around me that will help me to or help me to stay in situations or in environments that help me to honor who you are.
Yes.
God, Lord.
Yes.
You know, and so the contrast, from what I understand you to be saying now, is that the contrast is in the world, it's about the flesh. Yes. But in holy dating, it's about, okay, what honors God?
100%.
What honors God?
Yes.
And what does honor God is that he did make a female, a woman for the man.
Yes.
So it does honor God for you to go, for a man to seek a wife. That does honor God. But the way you do it, you've got to do it in the way that God would be pleased with.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you as a woman get to the truth about the intentions of the pursuer, the man the Bible says the man who finds a wife, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtain favor of the Lord. So the man is pursuing and he's seeking and he's looking for that wife. How do you as a woman get to the truth about the character of the man? Because, so you're looking for a holy man.
Yes.
Not just a man who come to church to find a holy woman.
Yes.
Because sometimes the club guy, he know his wife ain't at the club.
Right.
So he leave the club and come to the church to get him a wife, and then so he can take the wife out of the church and he go back to the club.
Right.
And that's some men are very deceptive.
Yes.
They want a good, wholesome wife, but they don't want to be wholesome themselves.
Correct.
So how do you kind of cut through the noise of the guy or the gentleman, the man putting up a front to actually capture you and just work his trick?
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And then after he gets you, then he goes back to his old ways. How do you find out how do you get to the real man?
So I've had an experience kind of with both. And the initial guy that I'm talking about, we didn't date. He pursued me and I wasn't interested, but I said, you know what, let me just see what he's talking about. I found that out through conversation and listening, not listening for what I wanted to hear, but listening from what's actually coming from him speaking for himself. And some of the things that he said was against what we believed. So even though I would see him in the atmosphere of the church setting, he did not believe it. But I found that out, again, through conversation and listening. And because I knew what I was taught and I knew what I believed, what he said, when I heard something that goes counter to what I believed, it was like, wait a minute, that's not something that I can pursue. And so when it came to my husband, listening to the conversation, but also watching his life. So if we did go out and we were away from his community, I was away from my community. And when I say community, I'm speaking on the people that hold us accountable. How he treated me, it wasn't different. It was almost as if our current pastor is sitting there. So I didn't have to worry about being uncomfortable or him making me uncomfortable trying to compromise on something that we said. No, we're going to date the proper way, the holy way. His action spoke that this is actually what I believe. I am seeking for a holy wife because I am studying to be a holy man.
Yes.
And so his actions portrayed that I am serious about this way. And when I did have doubt, or if I did have doubt, or what have you, I could go to my mom. I could go to his mom. I could go to someone within our community that might know him a little bit better than what I did or how I saw things. And that spoke so much regarding his character, that he is truly who he say he is, and he's serious. If it wasn't going to be me, if I wasn't going to be his wife and we didn't work out, he was serious about finding a godly woman. And so seeing those actions, the initial young man that I was talking about, how his actions changed outside of the church setting.
I see.
But my husband remained consistent. And so having those conversations and being around that person and truly watching them gave me the perfect sense of direction of where I wanted to go with the relationship.
And who you wanted to make the commitment with.
Yes.
So how and when did you know that the failure guy, the guy who failed, I mean, he was pursuing you, but, he didn't make it.
No.
He got cut.
Real quick. He got cut. Not even drafted.
So when did you know, and how, and when did you know that he wasn't the man, and how did you make the cut from him? How did you cut him?
I knew immediately during that conversation, because this was probably the first or second conversation that we had.
So it didn't take long at all?
It didn't take long at all.
I see.
Because again,
was it like an interview, or was it like
for me, it was an interview.
Yeah, like a little pad.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm
but you didn't have that's the thing though. But see, you didn't have a physical pad and pen.
No.
But and you didn't make it like, you kind of made it a comfortable conversation.
Yes.
But in your mind, it was like, okay, you were trying to check some things off, but he didn't know that that's what you were doing all together.
No.
You made him feel comfortable. It's like it's just a normal day.
Yes, normal conversation.
He didn't feel threatened, so he didn't have his walls up or guards up. Just make him feel comfortable.
Yes.
And then let him spill the beans.
Yeah, that's it. Walk right into it. Thank you for coming. Have a great day.
See, and the reason why I'm putting it like that, because see, if you get out your yellow legal pad and your pen, well, he might perform.
Absolutely.
That's the reason why I'm saying it like that. You don't want somebody to perform for you and say all the right things, and then you hear all the right things, and you never hear the red flags.
Correct.
You want to hear the red flags if those red flags are the truth, because the truth is what's going to help you to get to the right answer.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, like I said, it was like our first or second conversation, and we were talking about dating. I don't remember everything, because once my mind was like, nope, that's not it, I didn't really have to hear anything else. But there were some things that he said regarding dating that I knew that my standard, this is not something that I'm going to do. And so, again, I'm listening, so I didn't say much. I wanted to hear, what does he believe? What does he really believe? And so when he said those things about dating and what he thought was right, in my mind I said, no, this is not this is going to be the last conversation. So I said, okay, well, I don't believe that. And I said it very kindly. I didn't want to sound like I'm at church and, so I was very casual about it. It's like, no, that's not what I'm interested in, but, hopefully you'll find someone. And that was it. And he may have called, may have texted, and I was done with it because I had already said, no, this is not, I'm okay. Yeah. So that, and then again, with my husband, while we were dating, even though we went past conversation and we went out, went to dinner and things like that, I was still watching. Even though I felt sure about our relationship, because I wanted to do this right, I was very intentional about, I have to make the right decision regarding this relationship. Yes. So even though I felt good about it, and that's the emotion part of it, it was like, yeah, if God said it's not it, this is not it. And so when, again, his standard and how he treated me outside of the church setting was what I needed to see.
Yes, well, good. And so for you, even to start down the path, it was always about, okay, is this somebody for marriage? Yes. Is this somebody for marriage? Yes. Is this somebody for marriage? And it seems as though in the other scenario of the worldly way, it's not marriage, maybe. But for holy, the whole thing is set up and predicated on, finding a wife or finding that husband or that person that you can make that lifelong commitment and build your family with.
Yes.
Build your family with. And so you're looking for characteristics. And the short, the tall, the thin, the size.
Right.
How important do you think that is, or where does that rank with what you're looking for?
Yeah.
So what were you looking for?
So I did have a type. Now,
you did have a type?
Yeah, I did.
You have to admit that.
Oh, for sure. I did. And to be honest, I'm laughing at myself because anyways, I always like Family Matters, the show.
Yeah.
I've always liked Steve Urkel. I love the way he just...
So you weren't looking for Carl?
No.
Hey.
No, listen.
Wait a minute now. Listen. Somebody looking for Carl.
Then may the Lord help you. May the Lord help you. I was... And some girls like Eddie, he was a sporty...
Yeah.
It was something about Steve Urkel and the way that he just didn't give up. But now...
So you was looking for Steve.
But Steve did turn into Stefan. I like both,
Okay.
He was all in one.
Okay.
But I think I love it, right? And that's I love the fact that he was smart.
Yeah.
That he was who he was, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of girls didn't like it, but it was something like I just like the fact that he's different and he is who he is. But then I love the charm of Stefan's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, that's my husband through and through. He's now he don't look like Steve Urkel, thank goodness, but he's very smart. So I did have a type. I wanted someone that knew who they were, and my husband he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He doesn't apologize for that.
Yes,
but he's also a hard worker, and he knows.
Where's he now?
He's at home.
Oh, I thought he was at work.
He works at home.
Oh,
so yeah.
But he's at work.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's working right now. Yes, he's at home working.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to throw that in. He's actually because I asked you when you came in, he couldn't make it. You say he's at work.
Yeah, I wanted him to come, but yeah, he had to work.
Is he still working?
He's still working.
See, there you go. That's good.
So I did have a type. I did, but God blessed me to get my type. But ultimately, again, it was about who is this person, and is he going to be confident in who he is and who God called him to be. Yeah. Ultimately, that's all that matters.
So it sounds like still, from what I'm hearing from you, what you were looking for was more than skin deep.
For sure.
Like your priorities were more than skin deep, and all of that. Those other things came under those higher priorities, like character and who they serve, and the things that made their makeup.
Yes. That
was not just their outward appearance. No. And so that's wonderful that you had that in your heart.
It is. I'm thankful that I had that in my heart because that is ultimately because you're going to have good days and bad days.
Yes.
And then if God blesses you and you do get married, sometimes those bad days and the good days, the bad days can intensify. You don't know what you're going to have to go through, but it matters on who what is his character, or what is her character, because it carries over into marriage. And then sometimes when you get caught up on just what they look like in the outward appearance, it changes anyway. Yeah. And so who is that person consistently? Yes. And that is something that my husband showed me, that he's a very peaceful person. He's willing to work through things, that adversity doesn't scare him. Those were things that were important characteristics for me. So, yes, it was beyond what does he look like.
Yes. And so in your period where you were getting to know him, how were you able to surmise all of those things? How were you able to... and so I guess what I'm aiming at from you is, how does the other women that are listening that are single and they may be in a process of getting to know a potential spouse, and they need to know whether they should say yes or whether they should, tell them, don't call me, let me call you, where they should cut the relationship off. And one of the things, before you answer that, you cut off that first relationship very early. What is your advice on moving on from a relationship that it's not going to lead to a marriage?
Oh, wow.
What is your advice on the timeline of when you should move on, when you know it's not a yes? It's not a yes now, and it won't be a yes next week or next year or it's never going to be a yes. It's not a yes. It's a no. When should you release that relationship, or that, whatever you want to call that? When should you let that other person know?
In my opinion, first seek counsel. So in my perspective, I sought my mom. Because I'm going back to another story, because I want young women to know that holy dating is serious and it's the right way to go. So before I talked to another young man, because who I am, I'm a church kid at heart, right? So whatever I try to dip and dabble in, it never got far. So the Lord was just basically like, I just couldn't. It just wouldn't work out for you. It just never worked out. So no matter how whatever little thing I tried to do, it was like the Lord was like, I'm gonna make an example out of you. No, we're not doing that. Come back over here. So when it came to that, I didn't get. A lot of guys didn't just come after me, right? Because I knew that I'm just gonna do this the right way at this point. I can't seem to get out of what God ordained for me to do, so I'm just gonna do it. Within me doing that, there was, a young gentleman right after high school. And I wasn't, again, I'm not really interested, but I was okay talking to him because he was someone that I could just talk to. But that relationship caused a lot of friction because I'm settling, right? Because he doesn't have the ambition, doesn't believe what I believe. But this is a person that
and he wasn't smart as Steve.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Right. So this is me settling, right? So this is just not going. And so it just so happened one day my mom is listening to our conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just back and forth. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. But again, this is someone that calls me, checks on me, but this is not compatible. We're not compatible.
Right.
And I know this. But the fact of being lonely, I don't know when the next guy might come. So this is what I dealt with. So my mom, my mom just tells me, why don't you just hang up the phone? And I say, Mom, please, I'm trying to work, just hang up the phone. Just real quiet, cool, chill, like she is. And so I hang up. And she asked me a series of questions. When was the last?
So you just like in
I
the
said,
middle.
I'll call you. I said, you know what? I'll call you back.
So you didn't just
no
in the middle.
No.
Okay.
I should have, but I didn't. Okay. I left that door kind of, and I should have just. But she asked me a series of questions. When was the last time you laughed? When did you all talk about this? And everything was just like, no. Everything was. I had such a depressing, way about me, and it's just like, this is just what I know, so I'm just gonna deal with it. And she said, well, she gave me, she said, why don't you just do this for me? Just let him know that you just need a break. And I knew that if I said that, it's gonna be like, oh no, just try to talk me out of it, right? I did that, my mom came back to my head while I'm talking to him because he's making this a big deal. I don't want to, stop talking and da 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 da. And again, that part of me is just kind of like, but I don't want to be lonely. Mm-hmm. I'm only 17, 18. I'm not. I mean, my life is. I just come on now. But in my mind, my world. This is it.
Ain't nobody else coming.
This is it. Well. But I did that, right? And that was very, very difficult. And that was.
So you did what your mom
I did
said.
what my mom instructed.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I just need a break. Mm-hmm. And the ultimatum that he gave me was, well, then we'll never talk again. So in my mind, I'm young. My world is, this is it.
That's it, Mom.
Or I'm
going to be here the rest of my life, Mom.
Me and you. But I did that. And do you not know that I learned so much about myself. You're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And so I say that story, as embarrassing as it was for me to be 17 and thinking this is the end of it, that gave me the peace that I needed to move forward. So I say that to say, end it immediately, especially if you sought counsel. In my case, I didn't seek counsel, but I had my mom around me constantly.
She counseled you, though.
She counseled me,
yes.
and she knew me, and she knew what I needed, even though I didn't see it. So I say that if you know that it's not going to go anywhere, and you sought counsel, end it immediately, and don't look back. Had I looked back, I wouldn't have the life that I have now with my husband. So I don't regret it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult, right? Because you're uncomfortable, but it's not the end of the world. And I thought it was, but I had a whole life ahead of me.
Yeah.
So end it and don't look back.
Yeah. One of the things I try to encourage people about is that very thing. When you know, don't play or pretend or don't go forward. If you do, you could be missing out on the opportunity for the right person because you're involved with the wrong person. And there could be a scenario whereby you don't even know you missed the opportunity because the person that would have been more right for you, they come by you and they see that you're in a relationship or you're talking to somebody, man, they never even approach you. Because they think you're already taken. And so it would be better for you when you know, just let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
And if you don't, you could end up in a trap where you continue in something and make a commitment to something that you should never make a commitment to.
100%.
And so you could end up married to somebody that you never should have said yes.
Yes, correct.
So, but you did find the right one.
And I'm so happy. Yeah. Looking back, it's like, man, I should have did that. But taking heed to counsel and ending it it was the same day that she said it. Maybe a few hours later, I did what she instructed. Yeah. And I'm just like, it was a weight that was lifted because having that community, people can see what you can't see.
Right. Right.
And I didn't think that, I'm in my own little head, but she had already saw something better, and that's meeting my husband. Had I stayed in that situation, it just would have been horrible. Yeah. But God bless where I met my husband not too long after, and that was it.
Wonderful. That's something that you just brought up something to my mind in that basically your mom knew you. Yes. She knew you, and she knew how that relationship was affecting you. Yes. And she was able to really help you to see it, although you didn't see it for yourself. No. And the thing I want to say about that is, anybody that's listening to us now, the value of your parents and what they know about you. I know that we're not in a time where your parents pick your spouse. I know that. Yes. There used to be a time where that would happen. But if your parents are trying to help you to know that a person is not the right person for you, you ought to allow that to carry some weight. 100%. And I have testified to this, that my grandfather helped me. And my dad was trying to help me, but the way he was talking to me, it just didn't go over very well. But I'm going to give my dad some credit though, because he was trying to wave the red flags, and he was trying. Right. And but eventually, we went to dinner, and my dad was trying to tell me about this young girl, and I was looking to marry this girl, and he was trying to tell me. I left the dinner. I just walked out from the dinner. I mean, how you gonna tell me? How you gonna tell me? I mean, that's my choice.
Right.
That's my decision who I'm gonna marry.
Right.
You understand? But not long after that, I was riding with my grandfather, and he began to just ask me a series of questions.
Yes.
This is what your mama did to you, and I think we got some smart people.
My goodness.
and I get it too. I get it too. My dad was being direct. He was just trying to tell me.
Right.
Right. And I'm just but my granddad, he's just so smooth. He just eased into it. What you think about this and that? And he just asked me a series of questions. By the time he got through talking to me, it's like I could see as clear as a bell. And he hadn't really told me what to do. But through the series of questions, it just became clear.
Yes.
He said, okay, wow.
Yes.
And then I knew. So, but God, that's such a blessing to have people in your life that can help you.
It is.
So now, what advice would you give to somebody that's in the midst of a period where they're getting to know somebody for marriage? What are some of the things that you saw in your dating life that you would say were good things, or some things you learned from your experiences?
I learned a lot. We dated a while. And my family dynamics changed as we were dating. So a lot of things that were normal or regular to me had changed almost overnight, right? So I'm relearning who I am and things of that nature. Even went through a series of homelessness. So it was a lot of things that were changing for me, again, almost overnight. Having those conversations when at this point we had decided, okay, we are going to see what happens in this relationship. And so having those series of questions as far as what are your goals? What do you want to be? What do you think, even about the church? Like, I'm asking all of these questions because, again, my whole dynamic.
But y'all was going to the same church, though, right?
We were, but that didn't, as we said before, that didn't mean much, So I was just like.
But you were still asking those serious questions.
For sure, yes.
Okay,
because I'm looking for, if I want marriage, it has to be a godly man. I've seen too much at this point. Again, I'm young, but I know what a good marriage should look like, at least some of the fundamentals, right?
Yes.
So I'm asking, what do you want to become? What are your goals? Basically trying to find out at the core, who are you outside of service and things like that. Conversations came up about sitting together at church. I didn't have to do that. And when I found out that he was okay with doing that, because we had both, and what I found out is, I don't remember how I asked him or how we talked about it, but we both had the same mindset that we go to church for God, right? So if the usher sits you next to me, cool, but we're not just going to just go to church to see each other. I'm going for a connection for my relationship with God. And so that was something that we even talked about. We didn't do a whole lot with finances until we actually got engaged, but we talked about certain things about finances and again, where do you see your life going? Who are you? And then also getting to know his friends. Who does he hang out with? Because sometimes the conversation or who that person is can change when they're around people that they're more comfortable with. And that wall can kind of come down. So I'm listening to the conversations that he's having. And most of the time we hung out, at the time he was in school for architecture. And so I'm in studio hanging out with his friends, listening to what they're talking about. And it was just him being Steve Urkel. but again, though, because sometimes that.
So some of the conversation was like, phew.
Oh, way over. I don't know what this.
I said, I'm impressed, but I don't know what he's talking about.
Not at all. I'm just going to sit and smile. That's exactly what I did. But that was important because I've also seen how some guys, when they get around their friends, they're different. And so who is this guy outside of? And so asking those questions and accepting those answers, right? Sometimes the red flags are going off, but because you're just so like, oh, he's just so handsome and so this, you miss it. And actually having those conversations and like, Lord, and a lot of prayer. And I don't just say that, I meant it. Because again, I'm not just trying to get married. I want a wholesome marriage. And so a lot of prayer. Even after we got engaged, our pastor Stacy, he told us these are some things you might have to deal with in marriage. I think you all will be fine. Even after that conversation, I was still praying because I did not want to this is a very important decision. And so a lot of prayer of like, Lord, help me. Like, am I seeing this right? Am I making the right decision? And shortly thereafter, someone from my community would basically say something or something would happen to where I had peace about the situation. So accepting what that person says could be a good thing or a bad thing, but recognize it, right? If there are red flags, if he's okay with spending the night and that's not something that you're going to do, that's something that you need to heavily consider. And in some cases, you might need to just, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this. Standards that you have. How do they feel about those standards that you set up? I'm not talking on the phone. I'm studying. I want to graduate from college. And so after 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I don't want to be on the phone. How do they accept those standards? Do they, beat those standards? Do they have standards for themselves? So those conversations, being around that person and their community will tell you a lot about your decision.
Yeah, well, good. I do know that the scriptures teach that evil communication corrupt good manners, and the people that person is hanging out with, it could speak a lot about who they really are.
Correct.
And so, who are their friends and who is their community? Those are good things to know. A typical date that you would call a holy date.
Okay.
A holy experience where you're getting to know this person. What does that look like?
Our first date, right? He talked to my mom. She gave him, okay, you can take her out. I want her back home by a certain time. She had already liked him, so that should have said something right there. But still, we went out. He planned our first date. We went to a park. He borrowed his sister Lily. She had like a picnic set up. He borrowed that from her, and we had a picnic. And
talking about like the Yogi Bear looking like a
the
basket,
picnic basket, yeah, like with the wine glasses, yeah, all of that, yeah. He didn't know I was clumsy as I am, so I don't know how that went. But the wine glasses and stuff, he could have just had plastic. I probably would have been better with that. But we went to the park.
Did you break the glasses?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But we probably would have came. I didn't break it this time, though. But needless to say, at our house now, we don't have a lot of glasses.
Okay.
But we went to the park and we painted.
Yeah.
And some of those paintings we still have at the house. Okay. So skating. Sometimes we would play basketball with our family. A lot of things that we did. Museums. We went to the museums multiple times. Now, everything happened during business hours. So it wasn't like driving like to the movies and stuff. We didn't do a lot of that. If we did, it might be matinee or something of that nature.
Matinee, that's
like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, during the day lunchtime. And then at the time we were both in school. So go to a museum, Basquiat, watch, different things of that nature. So a lot of things that were outdoors or with my family or with his friends or something like that. But we did a lot. It was actually a fun dating experience because we explored what's out right now. Let's go to a fair. Let's go. So it wasn't something that was just confined, and we were also careful that we weren't in spaces too long where it was just me and him.
Right.
That was very important. But the sky was the limit as far as dating. And when I say sky's the limit, because we knew there was a standard that the boundaries were set, right? So within those boundaries, it was still a lot of things to do.
Right. So, that's where sometimes people don't understand that boundaries can actually, like when you have a boundary, the boundaries can be freeing in that all the things you can do without doing something that's going to be damaging.
Correct.
Yeah. And without boundaries, you'll do things, but the things that you'll do can be damaging.
Yes.
But within boundaries, everything you can do that's free and liberating that won't damage you.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's where the holy dating come in at, is to give you some boundaries to where you can actually be holy.
Yes. And then
while you date,
yes,
while you get to know whether or not this is a person that you want to marry or not.
Yes.
Because now one of the things I will say is I as advice, I wouldn't advise somebody to marry a stranger.
Right.
And by the time that you were ready to marry your husband, y'all were friends.
Yes.
And you knew enough about him to know that you could say yes to forsaking all others, to the part of playing a wife to him and allowing him to be the head of your marriage and of your home.
Yes.
You were willing to say yes to that.
100%.
You knew enough.
I knew enough. I knew enough because again, we waited. We didn't have sex until marriage. So the boundary was literally set. Like there was so many things that we knew that we couldn't do because that's going to put us in temptation, and we're not trying to put ourselves in that predicament. So that boundary just helped us to even learn each other better in ways that, sometimes when you get outside of that boundary, now you're in a space where you may have compromised, and that makes things difficult. So because we knew that we were going to stay in that boundary, I was able to find out things about him that I would not have found out had I allowed myself to give myself away prematurely.
Yes.
So.
Yes, wonderful. Now, how long did you date before you got engaged?
So we dated 7 years. Now, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
I do not advise that. In our case is different, right?
And each case may have some variety or some variance.
Yes.
So, yes.
So in our case, again, my family dynamic changed, right? And so I had a lot of, my foundation had been shaken a little bit as far as family. And so with him being in school full time as well, starting in architecture, he discovered that he had depression. So there were some things that we had to work through individually.
Yes.
That actually, if we had gotten married at that time, I don't think it would have, been as strong. But when we found healing, I got healing, he got healing for what he was going through, the Lord blessed. So 7 years was not ideal, but in our case, it worked out to be a blessing.
I understand. I refer to what the scripture says, the two shall become one. It didn't say two halves will become a whole.
Right.
And the thing I think about that is I was counseling some people one time, and I saw two broken people before me. And it's like, y'all should not get married. If y'all get married, y'all going to have some problems. And the reason why I've said that is because they were broken. And it is good to be a whole person before you connect with another person. You need to be whole yourself.
Yes.
To say that the other person completes you, or I understand what people mean. I understand what people mean. But to say that you are broken though, and the person has to fix you, well, see now.
That's going to be an issue.
Now, what if, and then if both of you are broken,
then
who's going to be doing the fixing? So really, you do need to be in a good place before marriage.
Yes.
As a person.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, I want to say this too. You're dating for the purpose of marriage, and you want to do it in a holy manner. But part of the exploration or the thinking about being married is, you didn't say this, but I'm going to bring it up, and you kind of touched on it. But okay, it's not about me. But what can I give to a marriage? And just exploring yourself to find out, well, what can I offer to a marriage? I think a lot of times people are looking for what can they get out of a marriage. But if you're broken and you're not whole, then you may be a taker and not a giver. But to have a good marriage, you need to be a giver.
Yes.
And even the scripture says it's more blessed to give than to receive. But when you do give, you do receive. So sometimes, and in a marriage, there has to be some give and take.
It has to be.
So, part of your dating is, okay, what can I offer to this person?
Yes.
Do you agree with
100%? And some of that, and why I'm glad that we didn't get married right away because I was able to find out who I was, right? So I went to school, and then I was able to get my own apartment. It was Section 8, but it was mine, and it was clean, it was nice. And he also did the same thing. So we had to find out who we were, right? And not to lose myself in that relationship because we're not married. And if it doesn't work out, who am I? You know, can I a job, school? Can I do these things myself in case something happened where we're not, you know, we don't end up together, or if I didn't end up married at all? So that was something that we worked on outside of our relationship, is building ourselves as individuals, so that when we became married, it wasn't that difficult. I knew how to help. There are of course, some learning curves.
Yes.
Learning how to be submissive, that's not something that you learn overnight. And he's learning how to be a leader. But because we took that time to find out who we were as individuals, it helped within our marriage that the give and take had already kind of been founded, you know. So it wasn't as hard as it could be for some people.
That's good. So y'all, both of you learn how to put into the pot.
Yes, and we actually, with our marriage, he this is the Stephen part of him, but we paid for our marriage in cash. He was and that was now. I was like, okay, now how long we gonna take for this? Because so I worked to put money into the pot, and he worked. But at this time, again, we had already made the decision that we were going to get married, so we didn't do this prematurely. So we were giving, and so when it came down to marriage, he was like, I don't want to be in a lot of debt just having a wedding. And I agreed with that. Now, if I was like, hold on now, I gotta, I want to get a nice dress now. I want to.
You want to look good.
Yeah. I want,
you look like you're going to Bible study now. Come on now.
Right, yeah. So let's work a little overtime or something. So, but that's what he did, and so it worked out.
Yeah, well, that's good. So you just spoke about the financial part that both of you put into, right? But see, there's another part, and that's an emotional part, and sometimes people don't recognize that. All they can think about is money. But actually, you've got to be able to put some in emotionally, and time, and being there for each other, and service, and what you call the love languages.
Yes.
Acts of service, and gifts, and so sometimes there are people who they want to withdraw from the pot, but they don't deposit. You see, and so it's good when you have a mindset to deposit.
Yes.
And you can make some withdrawals.
Yes.
But put something in there.
Absolutely.
Put something in there. And so as a potential spouse, you've got the potential to be willing to put something in. And, the withdrawals time, they'll come, but you got to put something in.
You do.
And you got to feel, so the real responsibility of a husband and of a wife is actually the husband's job. Part of his job, his main job, is how to please his wife. The wife's job is how to please the husband. And so sometimes people just get caught up in the being pleased and not pleasing.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yes, that's a good point.
And so very good, very good. You. Anything that you would like to share with the audience before we close?
Marriage is beautiful. It is. I know sometimes we wait later. And in today's society, they wait later to get married. It's a beautiful thing, especially when and godly people are helping you and keeping you accountable. It's a beautiful thing. I would get married to him all over again. And we, again, being the things that we went through, him with depression, I had to give, and we had to kind of help pour into each other. So we were good friends, right? So that made a good marriage, is being a good friend and learning how to be a good friend. Marriage is just beautiful. I would do it all over again. And I know that today's society is completely against it. And being in church is countercultural. Like, we're going completely against what cultural says is normal or acceptable. but you can do it. It's
Yes.
a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer than others, but it's so worth it when you do it the godly way.
And the process, the holy dating, and so now you're in church together, and you serve together,
Yes.
and you praise together,
Yes.
and so you're in holiness together.
Yes.
But you started a process, and now you're in a holy marriage.
Yes.
And so you started out in holiness, and you're still in holiness,
Yes.
and you want to finish up in holiness.
Yes. 100%.
And, so that's wonderful. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having
And
me.
sharing your experience and what you have learned with us and with our audience. And we appreciate the Growing in Grace audience, and we're glad that you've been with us. Now, you may have a young person or a person that is single in your life. You may not be that single person. There may be somebody listening that's not single, but you may have somebody that could benefit from this podcast. Share it with them, and allow them to receive the benefit of this conversation. And because, again, our whole lives are not just about us.
No.
We actually should be looking out for our brothers, our sisters, and other people in our life that we love. So we're glad that you've been with us today. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to like, share, subscribe, and the last thing is, come on back to the next podcast. God bless you until next time.